Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Mel. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm interested to find out more about the next card in our tarot series, the Justice, I think we're
Woo.
covering.
Yeah, so we're going to be covering the Justice card. This is going to be card number 11. So we're halfway through our
Yeah.
journey through the Major Arcana, and we're coming to Justice, which that would make sense as Justice is all about balance, right? Justice is
Mhm.
about balancing the good with the perceived bad. This is about, justice in its truth, its fairness, and in law. So when we're getting halfway through, we start to really pay attention. The last card we did was the Wheel of Fortune, which tells you to remain in the center of the wheel so that you become aware and that you can check your own vibe. You can check what you're putting out, what you're receiving, and how you want to live. This one just carries into that through things like your karmic justice, your truth, your accountability. And this also is letting us know that your intuition should balance your logic. So, I have a quote here that I want to read, and it's if you have been wronged, this card may bring relief. If your actions have caused pain, a warning. This lets you know that we are always on a revolving cycle through the world, through this major arcana, right? So what we put out in the world does get received. You've heard me speak of this dozens of times. The world is reflective. This is my personal opinion. This is not fact. Has no scientific backing for me. It's just through trial and error. I've really began to note that what I put out in the world is what I receive. And so the justice card comes in and tells you that if what you're putting out in this world is good, is compassion, what you're projecting into this world is joy and grace and peace and all the things that you want to be, you're going to start receiving that back. But if what you're putting out into this world is fear, anger, cruelty, toxic behavior, then you're going to start learning your lesson through the justice card. So it really is a stop and check point, right? We're halfway through the arcana. Now we really got to check ourselves. What have I been doing? I've been doing all of this work, all this internal work. I've been focusing on the external a little bit less. I'm recognizing that there's patterns in this world. But at the end of the day, is what I'm receiving back fair? Is it just? Is karma playing a role right now? Am I going through a karmic cycle? Am I going through a cycle of good karma, a cycle of bad karma? Because there's both. Karma doesn't have, they're just balancing the scales. Again, justice is a scale thing. We're balancing. And so the world likes things to be in balance. So if you're putting out a lot of good, you're going to have a lot of good coming back. You're balanced. If you have been putting out a lot of bad, you're going to have some bad negative experiences coming back. It's balance. We're remaining balanced in every aspect of our life. You're starting to really learn this as we walk through this arcana, that life is about balance in every arena, about every aspect of who you are. You're just coming in. We call it shadow work. We call it this, we call it that. But what we're really doing is bringing your life back into balance so that you can walk forward comfortably, acknowledging yourself, being conscious of yourself. So the element of justice is air, right? So you're looking at a mutable sign. Again, it's all about balance. If what you're putting out, air is being mutable, can go up either way, up and down, around, whichever way you would like. So if you're putting out good, expect that higher frequency to come back. If you're putting out some lower frequency things, you're going to receive the lower frequency. The ruling planet is Venus. So we look at Venus as what the sign of the planet of love, right? The planet of maybe sexuality, the planet of whatever. But when we're talking specifically about this major arcana card, this justice card, Venus is going to be teaching you through love. And love, love doesn't have any boundaries in that department. Love is love, and love can be hard or stern love, or it can be gentle and nurturing love. So depending on what you've been putting out, the reflection that you come back now is it's coming. And so when you receive the justice card, or you start walking through the path of this justice card, you're going to really start taking note of the experiences in your life. And perhaps, maybe you were a part of that experience, and maybe you were putting things in without even realizing it. Because this really isn't about being a good person or a bad person. This is really about the justice, the balancing of it all. So if say you had a friend group, and this friend group was filled with gossip and rumors and talking terribly about each other, right? And you are now up on the podium for that. Now it's your turn. Now they're talking about you, right? Well, what was your role in that? What did you do in the process? Maybe you thought what you were doing was just trying to keep open dialogue, but perhaps your opinion inside of that open dialogue has created a mess and putting you up on the chopping block, correct? Or maybe you chose to walk away from those friends because you didn't want to play a part in that. And you didn't want to be having conversations about people anymore. Well, now you're probably running into people that have goals outside of another person or other people's lives. They have tenacity in ways that you haven't seen before. They're functioning in higher frequencies or more healed ways. And that would be justice serving you in a positive way. If we're noting the difference here, then you can start to see how the justice card works. It's all about cycles, and it all comes down to choice, and it all comes down to you making the choice. So this is another card where we're working with both masculine and feminine energy. There is no limits on the justice card. It's an internal justice or it's an external justice. It's either grounded in this reality justice, or it's grounded inside of your mental or physical, like your physiological experience. And then of course the zodiac sign it's associated with is the Libra. And if we know anything about zodiac, Libra is the person that holds the scales, right? Think of our justice system, blindfolded, holding scales. Same general idea here, initially. So, but yeah, so when we're talking justice, I would like to just point out that we are not being punished. This isn't a punishment nor a reward system. What this is what you put out is what you get back system. What is it that you want to put out so that you can get back what it is that you want? We're not being punished by the universe. The universe is simply asking us to learn lessons. It's asking us to become consciously aware of our behaviors, to be balanced in the things that we choose to do. Sometimes you can be too nice, right? You can become the doormat that is nice. And maybe what the justice card is teaching you is to be kind. And kind is no doormat. You must knock on the door to enter kindness space. You must respect boundaries for kindness to remain. Nice is so busy trying to get you to like me, whereas kind is saying, I don't need you to like me, but I do, if you're going to be in my world, to respect me. And so justice can look like all sorts of things, but it's all about the balance of the things. If you have a heavy ego, you're going to receive humbling experiences. If you have that opposite of that heavy ego, and you might not think enough of yourself, you're going to start walking into experiences that might build upon that. Oh, look, your intuition was right. Oh, look, you made the correct choice when deciding at this crossroads what it is that I'm going to be doing. Yeah.
So it's being aware of the actions that you take and the accountability for however those actions turn out.
Yeah.
And if anybody's reflected on their life or got something that's bugging them that they've done that they feel that maybe they could have done it different, well, the whole point is like what you say, you learn a lesson, but you show compassion to yourself and you say, okay, right, I did it in that way. I didn't know any better at the time, or I did have this inkling, but I didn't listen to my intuition, or I wasn't completely aligned with that. So I went down that track anyway. And these are the consequences to that. I can sort of relate to this in terms of I've got involved in things at work often, well before I should have done. And then because then I've tried to find a way through or carried on with it, is the consequences of my actions were, is sometimes when you open the door to something and you get involved with it, then, you know, it's then how do you make changes inside of that, rather than aligning with your own intuition about any of those situations and feeling into it and just deciding not to decide, because obviously that's an action too. And then where we've messed up, got something wrong or whatever, you just have compassion for yourself, because we're humans trying to have, you know, spirits in a human body trying to have a human experience with everything that's going on in the world. Because the thing around justice, it sits within morals a lot of the time as well, doesn't it? As well as our justice system, and people's understanding about what is right and wrong. And I remember when I was working with some young people, the way to help them develop some confidence to think a bit wider, or just have confidence not knowing and think a bit philosophically about it, is you would pose some questions. You know, if you only had, say, £10,000 and you could either operate on somebody or you could give some treatment to somebody else who had diabetes, what decision would you make? You know, and sometimes people come up with into contact with those sort of decisions, sometimes not necessarily life-changing ones, but an equally difficult or an equally good decision. So how, you know, so that sometimes it sits within the moral fabric, which is, you know, everyone can have a different version of it. But if it's something directly affecting you or the people around you, then you have to get better at aligning with yourself and discerning, so that you don't walk into a situation that then, you know, 6 months down the line. And I think everyone's done that at some stage, haven't they? You know, where they've walked into a situation and they've gone, why am I back here again?
Wait,
you know,
I recognize the space. Yeah.
I recognize this. This is deja vu. Is this happening again?
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's like, okay, so you're doing it again, but the thing is, this time you became aware of it much quicker. So, you know, like in previous podcasts, you talk about cycles.
Yeah, the cycle of change came to mind as soon as you said that. Yeah, exactly. It's that first step is the awareness of it. Not ready to make the changes, but now you're becoming consciously aware of what it is that is causing. Yeah. And you can go through that cycle several times, because you can revisit the same pattern, but each time the inkling gets much clearer that, I've stepped into this space again. I've made this decision. I've ended up, I think a classic one for a lot of people, isn't it? Is somebody says, do you want to go here on Friday night? Do you want to go there? And you're half-hearted about it. You're like, I don't know if that's my thing. And you go along to it and you get there and you think, I wish I would have stayed at home with, you know, a glass of wine and watched some comedy on TV. I would have enjoyed it more. And then you go and do that as FOMO in America, fear of missing out. Yeah.
Sometimes that's part of it. And sometimes it's, you just don't realize that half-heartedness isn't necessarily the path to joy in exhilaration.
As a compromise is what that is. It's a compromising joy. Yeah, no, that's right. You know, because, you know, I like that sometimes when we are forced to make these hypothetical big choices, like what you were doing with the kids, right? It really does give you a sense of confidence. Oh, I would be capable of making a decision, because even in this hypothetical experience, I was able to come up with something maybe even outside of the box. And then you're like, oh, maybe I'm a little more, you know, maybe I'm smarter than I thought I was. Maybe I'm more creative than I thought I was. And so you're starting to really give yourself this pep talk. You know, we had talked about this on the Wheel of Fortune last one, which was the whole, like, the self-talk does reflect, you know, I didn't get to mention it in the last podcast, but everything we do, everything we think, that we have this look of what magic looks like. But if we are in this reality and see it through the way we're supposed to, you'll see that your thoughts are the beginnings of spells, because as you speak them or write them down, they now become what you believe, right? And your body doesn't know, where they tell you not to talk poorly about, don't even joke about being something, like, don't joke about being stupid or overweight or lazy, because your body your guardian.
That's what it literally is.
Yeah. It doesn't know it can't tell a joke.
Can't tell the difference.
Yeah. It thinks everything is truth. Like, oh, that's the truth. And then eventually it's going to believe that. Right. And then now you are. And so the words are spells, and we have to be able to speak the truth, the reality into existence that we want to be in, and not be stuck in the mistakes of the past, or that maybe, it took you 9,722 times to get through this one cycle, but maybe that was the cycle that was bigger than you could imagine. That's going to break you free. We have to be compassionate to ourselves. We have to treat ourselves like we would a child. We're not going to, yell at a child for having, for peeing in its diaper when it's 6 months old. It's just part of it. And as they're potty training, what have we learned works when we have kids? Positive reinforcement, not the negative, not fear-based reinforcement. Children tend to want to please and be pleasers. And so if we please through appropriate means and not through this fear-based means, the kids seem to pick up on it a little quicker. They seem to have a better time. It's not as traumatic for everybody involved. Right. And then we have to get up and try again, because we're going to use the kid analogy again. When you're learning to walk, these kids will fall down 1,000,000 times, but they get up 1,000,001 times. Yeah. And so we have to be gentle with ourselves. We have to treat ourselves like we would a child, because these are usually the things that we're healing, is the inner child. So the nicer you are to yourself, the kinder you are to yourself, as long as you hold yourself accountable. But accountability doesn't look like beating yourself up. Accountability looks like, I am now aware of a behavior. And so from this point forward, I'm going to make it a point not to recreate that behavior pattern. That's what accountability looks like, is an action, right? It's in the action. It's not, how dare I, no wonder I am the worst. Things are just, and then you're just walking yourself back into a deeper, darker cycle that you're not going to want to be in.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people are dogged by that real deep negative self-talk, and often patterns within families that, I don't know, somehow in the dark ages, we thought that talking in a mean way to our children was going to be encouraging and would be something that helps them grow. But as you're saying, the research is showing that, where attention goes, energy flows. And if our focus and mind is on particular language and words, just like as we were talking in the last podcast about healing, if you want to really start to get some benefit out of this concept of healing your own body, is you command your body. I'm stronger. I have flexibility. I'm walking. I'm getting stronger and stronger each day. And it's a language I became aware of, actually, because on and off I've experienced issues since I had the car accident with my back, and I realized that I was getting up a lot in the mornings because I'd been experiencing aches and pains and for so long that had become the pattern. And I was saying, I'm achy, I'm pain, and the whole focus was on that. I thought, no, and I started changing it. I thought, I need to wake up and go, I'm getting stronger, I'm becoming more flexible. Because you're right, language is incredibly powerful, and it can, the self-talk can be so damaging to the sense of self and the growth and the capacity, and limit any possibilities that we've got to, if we're in that negative cycle, we've got to turn that around.
I know that through my research and my understanding of self, I don't self-talk in a negative way the way other people do. And I've noted that. But I can align in the understanding of, I'm hard on myself. I'm a perfectionist with myself. I demand myself a higher level. And that in itself is detrimental, because I'm not allowing myself the motions to be able to fail or to be able to learn or relearn something, because I've got to get it right. And if I don't get it right, then I'm not good enough. And so that for me is how I can relate to negative self-talk, is because if I set myself a goal and I'm not perfect at that goal, then I have a tendency to not be okay with that. I have to keep working harder. So, and that's for future. And so I would just assume assuming that this just twists itself and goes to the past. And if I would have done that better, then this wouldn't have happened. And if I would have just kept my mouth shut here, then maybe they wouldn't have hit me. Or maybe if I did this, then these people would still be my friend. Right. You know, like, and then it's just negative towards self. And so I can see it from the way I look into my future, for the way a lot of people would look towards their past and their past mistakes, quote unquote. Right.
Well, you've raised an interesting different angle on those patterns, because what we sometimes talk about, like with this card, is around the capacity to take accountability and responsibility for our actions. But sometimes what we're doing is we're taking too much responsibility for everything that's going on, and actually not realizing it's the other people around us that should be taking responsibility and accountability.
Yeah. And that's part of the karma, though, of this card, is your realization that you're not responsible for other people's feelings, thoughts, and actions. That this is not your responsibility. And the more responsibility and the more you take on of that, the more you're going to see karma that doesn't belong to you. And I really mean that. You're going to start seeing things happen to you that karma might have belonged to somebody else. And this does happen in the world. And so justice really comes forward and says, let's take a look at our past. Let's take a look at our now, and let's focus on the future. Now that you know better, do better. If you have maybe been, because we talk about keeping out of victim mentality, but sometimes life is just unfair.
Yeah.
Life can be just very unfair. And justice can also come in with that sense of, oh my gosh, things are about to work themselves out. I am about to get justice. I am about to see. And justice doesn't look like, just like I said about karma in the last episode, it doesn't look like what you put out, right? Justice is the balance of it. It's an energetic thing. It's a feeling. It's an emotion. Sometimes it can be your physical experience, but for the most part, the universe doesn't use language. It's like speaking language. Its language is in signs, symbols, vibrations, and frequencies. And so when we're working with the universe doing the justice, because the justice is outside of ourselves, right? Now we're talking like the energetic feedback of what you've done, right? Like if you've been putting out a lot of negative because you just weren't consciously aware to it, the justice card coming forward is letting you know that, hey, justice is coming. And if you start to notice that things are negative around you, it allows you to re-enter. Again, justice and the wheel of fortune really go hand in hand. It allows you to go back into that center of the wheel, observe again, reflect, and then push forward, maybe more than likely in a new pattern. And so the justice card obviously provides justice, but the lesson in that is I'm responsible for me. What is it that I can do to eliminate other people's karma, other people's traumas, other people's need for healing, and take those off of my plate? Right.
And on a bigger sort of level of scale of that is, so for example, we're working with women who are in domestic abuse relationships. They're taking all the responsibility and accountability for lots of things that actually they can't, because they're in a situation that is so impossible because of whatever reason that is manifesting in that way, in that relationship. Now I'm saying, is it because someone actually wants to be abusive? Is it their psychopathology? Or is it that you've got, conflict or people who just can't regulate their emotions? I don't know. Everyone's situation is different. But once the person who's experiencing that steps back and reflects and doesn't take responsibility for everything that's been asked of them. Now, that's quite difficult in some relationships because you've been so brainwashed to believe that it is yours, that if you change the way you look, the way you dress, the way you spoke, the way you think about things, and then you realize that none of that, and this is what some of the clients are saying to us, that none of that is ever good enough, that you never hit the mark, that the dinner was never hot enough, it's too cold, it's too this, it's too that. You can't fit yourself into any shape anymore. So you've got to set back and not take the accountability, and actually it sits with them, and realizing that it's their problem and their situation. And on a bigger scale is when you can't do it, then the law comes into account here. So then the law says, well, you shouldn't be around that person because that is so damaging and so abusive, and they can't see it. We've then got to take some action.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like that's also with like child abuse, right? Like the kid can't do anything, so the law has to come in, right? So there is the universal type energy that comes in and says the law is not going to speak up on your behalf because that's not fair for you. And provides its justice in that way. And sometimes justice doesn't come, in this lifetime, but that's, again, it sounds harsh. It's not meant to be harsh. We outside of childhood, of course, because we just, you are at your most vulnerable in your childhood.
Exactly.
You have your least amount of power in childhood. Somebody else is making all your decisions for you. But as an adult, if you continue to make the choices that you're making and you continue the patterns that you're walking, justice may never be served. It might go to somewhere else. The balance might end up in another place because the universe wants to balance. So you have to start making choices that are in alignment with self. You have to start being conscious of the things. You have to start using the psychology of what we've handed you over these last 11 major arcana cards to bring yourself to the realization that you are consciously affecting your world every moment. You just need to be aware of it. And the more aware you are, the easier these things become. First steps are the hardest steps. The women that you're working with, the hardest step was to even come forward, right?
Yeah.
The hardest step. Now that they're starting to detangle, understand, they're like, wait, that was never on me. I got to make new choices. I've got to make different patterns in my world. So the justice card helps with that, right? The justice of it comes. They made that choice. Now justice is starting to come forward. Now it looks like freedom. It looks like no physical abuse. It looks like less mental abuse. It looks like the company of others that can be understanding. So now justice is coming forward. And it doesn't mean that he's going to go and get wrecked by somebody. It means that you're now finding your experience to be more palpable, more enjoyable, to have some peace in your fucking world. That's what justice looks like. And so these women that you're working with are doing tremendous work, but they're making good choices. They're doing the work. They're focusing on self and healing.
And we've seen this happen with a few. We've seen people who deliberate between the two choices for quite a while and go backwards and forwards because
it's a scary choice.
It's a scary choice, but the women that have come through and have joined us and stayed with us for a few weeks or a few months on these programs have realized just in a short time that when they've had the space to themselves and they've realized that they're not walking on hot bricks and they're not trying to manage every move, every sound, everything they're doing, and that they've been relaxed and that they've actually enjoyed some days. Once they start to experience that and they can see the contrast, even if they slip back temporarily, and we've talked about that on other podcasts, we're human, that happens. The justice is served when the person who is been dishing out the abuse and the terrible behavior, the justice is served by the fact that you're not there, because they've lost out on that wonderful possibility. Because the very interesting thing, now I've not researched this, so I can't say it's a fact, the amount of nurses we come into contact with that are coming out of domestic abuse relationships, and the amount of people who are high in empathy, who are in the helping field, and yet are getting dished this, or having these experiences.
My mom worked in child welfare.
Yeah.
Her literal job was to help children from domestic abusive situations. But in her own home, it was abuse everywhere by the hands of the man she loved.
Yeah.
And so these empathetic people have this tendency to be empathetic to everybody but themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so they're giving and giving, but where's their right? And so now here we are with the acknowledgement that maybe I deserve more.
Mm.
Maybe I can walk this different pattern. Maybe I can give myself a little credit now and again. And maybe I can hand over a little of the blame now and again.
Yeah.
And then the justice really, and you are so spot on, because the justice is in that situation, the perpetrator no longer having somebody to perpetrate.
Yes.
Now, who are they going to take it out on? Now they're stuck in their own head. Now they have to dig themselves out of the hole, possibly legal hole at that. Now they're the ones having to deal with the repercussions. And you handed karma, you were the catalyst to karma by just making a better choice for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we start to see that almost instantly in so many cases, that the moment different decisions are made, and it's very simple stuff. Sometimes it's not rocket science. It's like everything that we espouse, but on a sort of tougher scale, really, which is embracing every one of those moments when they've got it, so the feeling starts to stick. Because for some reason we seem to remember and retain the negative experiences we have much more than we retain the positive ones. So we've got to keep reinforcing the positive ones so that they stick. Otherwise it needs to be like Velcro in the brain, it needs to be that you remember it enough.
No, I've literally been teaching this that was started this weekend, and I've been teaching this all week to people, which is, it's the 5-to-1 method, right? So it takes 5 positive to outweigh 1 negative. This is how we work. Okay. And I wish we could change that, but this is just this is how the human mind goes. And so what I've been doing is telling people to tackle that negative experience and just put it all in one. That's the negative. You don't have to recount every negative piece of that negative experience. Make that the one, and then start to break through the memory of that and find all the good pieces of it, and then start counting that to 5. And then once you get to 5, you keep replaying those 5 things. And if that negative comes up, you replay the 5 things.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cause it can set you back into the balance that we're meant to be in. It can set you back into the pattern you've been desperately working to get to. Because negativity really is a powerful force. It really is. I mean, like, I am very, easily swayed into negativity. I'm a realist by heart. So negativity is a natural, easy push, right? Because realists can look at things and say, well, it's right here. And then something negative happens and you're like, well, maybe it's further over here. And then you can drag you down into the depths. So so with, justice is beyond the card. It's beyond just being served some court order or watching the person that cheated on you get cheated on. No, justice looks just like what Mel and I've been talking about. It looks like making better choices for yourself. It looks like standing up for yourself. It looks like walking away when it no longer serves you. Then you get to be the catalyst for another person's karma, and you have nothing to do with it other than being better to yourself. You have nothing to do with it other than creating a new value system. You have nothing to do with it but going and living your blissful life that you deserve. And so when the justice card comes forward in any experience that you have, or you're just wanting to walk through the major arcana and pull the justice card and really start to hit the depths of it, know that karma will never look like the way you want it to, but it's going to look like it's needed. And it's going to be the needed thing in the world that had to be done. Take your justice. You deserve it. You deserve having the lesson to move you into better and higher frequencies. And whenever you start receiving the good, know that you've earned that too, because balance comes everywhere. It doesn't matter if it comes to you. Balance is needed in this world. It's going to balance out somewhere. Make sure it's you. Make sure you're doing the work so that that justice comes back your way in the highest frequency possible.
Yeah, and it's focusing totally back, as we've said in other cards, back to self, because we had some really beautiful moments last week when we were running one of the groups, because one of the ladies that joined us, it was her first week. She was really shy at talking, but quite quickly they started to tap into. Somebody asked her, what did you do before you had this relationship? And she said she was at university and she was doing drama and she loved to dance. And the moment she started talking about the things that she loved to do and what she was doing before the relationship, you could see she was tapping right into it.
Oh.
Then we were asking everybody else in the group, and they were saying about songs that they love, music that they love, activities that they loved. And the whole session became, what were the things that you did? Because they keep saying the key thing is, I want to get my self-confidence back. I'm not the woman that I was before I met this guy. You know, I've lost it. And so the whole group just started bouncing off each other. And the energy of that was so palpable that the group itself made it much stronger. But everybody was tapping in there, and things like, oh, I know it's stupid, but I like this music. No, what music do you like? What do you love? Because what we wanted to do was give them permission to fully enjoy that, no matter what anybody else thought about it.
Yeah, who cares what anybody else thinks about it?
Who cares?
Yeah.
Enjoy it, immerse yourself in it. And we saw the flourishment, the blooming in front of our eyes just through this conversation that we were allowing to
It's
expand.
something about that light coming back into the eye that just does it for me, man. It just does it for me. So yeah, that's beautiful. And you know, and that's just it, is allow yourself to be who you want to be. Allow yourself the privilege of knowing yourself. You know, you're your greatest love story. You're your greatest partner in this world. You're the wisest for yourself. So trust that stuff. And that's exactly right though, Mel. You know, everything comes back to self. Everything I teach will always, anybody comes to me with a relationship issue, we're not talking about the relationship. I'm talking about you. Whenever we talk about things that are going on in this world, I don't care. I want to know about you. What is it about you? What is the reaction by you? Because it all comes back to self. It all comes back to, this is me. This is my world. How I'm perceiving the world is up to me. No matter what's going on in it, I am the one in charge of how I perceive it. So if I'm going to, I can walk this world in fear, or I can walk this world in love. And I know what I chose. I chose to walk in love. And every day, every week, it seems I'm taking off another layer of fear. And to walk that pattern requires a lot of faith, but it also requires a lot of trusting of the self. And we have to trust ourselves in order to put anything good back out into this world. In order to walk any type of journey, trusting yourself is going to be the number one thing of all of it. For sure.
And I guess if there's a flame that you really need to burn brighter on an issue that you're dealing with, then to do that with groups of people who have had similar experiences is really important. If we look at the whole movement in the 60s and 70s around human rights, you know, it took crowds, it took a lot of people to make shifts in terms of laws changing. And sometimes that's required when injustice is so prevalent and so many people is so detrimental to their well-being, then it's hard to do it on your own. You have to find other people to do that with you then.
Now I will tell you this, in my idealistic world, we all work on ourselves and things naturally change. We don't live in that world. I am a realistic person. We don't live in that world, but it still does come down to self. And if self needs a little more of the being able to lean into others that have had similar storylines, this is what they're there for. I've literally created an in-person group that's dedicated to learning and growing and healing. And that's because it gets lonely in those arenas as well, right? We don't have to have the same story, but we have to have a same structure, right? There has to be a structure there. So continue to go forward with the people that make you feel better about yourself, that make you aware that you are this amazing human being that is deserving of love and the light that is quite possible here. And don't surround yourself any longer with people that tell you, we need to be accountable, and it's good to have friends that help us be accountable. But at some point, you've got to just be accountable for yourself. And you need to surround yourself with what I call yay sayers, people that are not yes men, but are congratulating men, people that are excited for your wins, that are there for your losses. but are still getting you up every fucking day and saying, yay, yay, you, yay, us, yay, this world, and not the ones that are always negative and sitting in negative emotions, telling you what you need to do and how you need to do it. So become self-aware, become accountable to self, and then start surrounding yourself with people that really care and want to see you grow and want to see you be the best you that you can be at whatever level that is. Yeah,
definitely. And if it's something that somebody at the moment who's listening to this might be thinking, no, I don't even think that's possible. When you start making different choices, it does become possible. You don't even have to ask for it. It just arrives.
I changed my entire life.
Yeah.
I rewrote my entire script. I put everything in the trash can and said, no more. And I did everything in my world that I could do to make the changes. I let justice play out. I let karma play out. I learned my lessons, and then I walked out, and then I continued forward. And if I can do it, and Mel can do it, and all of these other people I associate with can do it, I know it's possible, even when it doesn't feel it. When it doesn't feel possible, take the step anyways. Just take it anyways. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to prove yourself right. What's the best that's going to happen? You're going to prove yourself wrong. And what a good thing to be proved wrong in. Right? I mean, geez, we can do this. We really can. If Mel working with some of the people in this world who didn't have enough, what is the word I'm trying to think of, enough empowerment within themselves to not be like, to stay away from situations that are abusive, and they can come out of it, and they can find new footing, and they can find their journey in a more peaceful way. You can do it too. Even when it feels like the world's stacked against you, you can still do it. Take the step. The universe loves tenacity. The universe loves a stubborn person. They love it. They love it. And it's for good reasons. I mean, the number of whys I've asked this universe, if they ever get me in a recording for that, oh my goodness. I hope my next life isn't like just me asking why all the time or having somebody ask me why all the time. So don't do it to me. But yeah, so, when justice is around, remember what you're worth. And if you're receiving less than that, change the pattern. Acknowledge yourself. Acknowledge who you are. It's not all on you. The world keeps moving, even if you make a mistake. So allow yourself to grow within this card. Allow yourself the lessons that this card really can provide, because there is some beauty inside of justice. It can feel dark and dooming if you maybe have been unconsciously behaving and displaying patterns. But once you've learned from those, which the card before, Wheel of Fortune, really shows you how to be conscious of your experience, the Justice card is going to come as a sweet relief every time.
Yeah, definitely.
So outside of that, I don't have a whole lot more. I have my questions and the tarot spread. So if there's anything you'd like to add, okay, perfect. Yeah, justice seems pretty cut and dry, right? It's balanced. All right. So some questions I really want you to ask yourself is, do I hold by my beliefs and accept the repercussions of my actions? What is my worth? Am I taking good care of myself? And now we're going to move into the tarot. So if you're working with a tarot deck, pull the Justice card out, sit that'll be your center card. That's the energy we're working with. If you do not have a tarot deck and you're working with oracle cards, or just working with asking yourself questions and allowing yourself to be intuitively guided, just imagine the Justice card, pull it up on the computer, pull it up on your phone. So again, I try to keep these shorter, but sometimes the bigger cards really need to have more information. So the first question is, what is light in my world? The second is, what is heavy in my world? The third question is, what is true in my world? Number 4 is, what is known? The 5th is, what is felt? And the 6th and final is, what is fair? Now, if you pull this and you start doing these, go ahead and just really sit with these, because the Justice card is going to give you a lot of information. The Justice card being the energy that you're working in, these 6 questions are going to be very, very exposing. Allow them to expose themselves. The truth is the truth. It doesn't have an opinion. It just is. So allow yourself that moment to really gain this information, this wisdom, and then work yourself into patterns that align with who you really want to be.
I think the 2 aspects that stand out for me, because as you know, light and dark are just always concepts I'm playing with, is the idea is what is light and what is heavy. But I think even if you were feeling it on a physiological level, you know, if you're getting up in the morning, is where are you feeling heavy and what thoughts create the heaviness? What experiences are creating that heaviness? Is it the particular job you're doing? Where do you feel light and then where do you start to feel heavy again? And sometimes we can get that information from our bodies that will indicate that path a bit more than we're logically able to get it sometimes. And that's sometimes the way I tune into things, you know, is I think it's it's human design, where some people actually tune into a sound, you know, so does it have a or does it have a you know, sound to it? And if it's a it's usually, I'm drawn towards that. That's interesting. That is something for me. But if it has a heavy and it's a you know, then it's like, okay, no.
Yeah. And this is that at the beginning when I said you've got to balance intuition with logic. You must balance the 2. You can logically know things, but the world isn't always logical. So we have to intuitively guide ourselves as well, right? This is the whole back and forth balancing all of it, you know. So human design is really good at letting you know intuitive, like it tells you so that you could start learning what your intuitive guidance system is. Is it an emotional? Is it an immediate? Is it, you know, is it something that talks to you? Is it something you must sit 30 days? Because that's a very small percentage of people, but if they're called reflectors, have to sit for a full moon cycle before they can really make that decision. So, you know, we have all of these different guidance systems within us, and they're very unique to who we are. And so the more we know and discover about ourselves through things like gene key, human design, astrology, the tarot cards, things like that really help you tune into that intuitive side of yourself, getting to know who you are and how you work and how you're designed. What is your blueprint allows you then to go forward knowing that, okay, like you wouldn't build a skyscraper without the blueprint. Right. So you can't build upon yourself without some form of knowledge of your blueprint. So get your blueprint. They're all free information out there. None of this costs anything except for a little time and a little energy, right? So allow yourself the time and energy. It's well spent, and get to know yourself a little bit better, get to know what your intuitive process looks like, and then start stepping forward. It really, the more you know, right? I don't know if you guys had that in the UK, but it was like a rainbow with a star, and it'd be like, the more you know, written across it. And it's like, the more you know. And so the more you know about yourself, the easier this world becomes. And the more you become aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you can step forward in this world.
And one of the ways that people might not always be aware where the light gets dimmed is by somebody else's comments, opinions, and views of you, which is classic in those relationships. But it happens on a very subtle level. And there's something that can just be disconcerting sometimes to another person when you're feeling light and bright. And that other person isn't. What happens is often they might want you to join them. And one of the classic things we used to talk to parents about when they were talking about some of the issues they had with the kids is when they started implementing more positive behavior strategies, no matter how supportive and it was the right thing to do they were, the children would up the ante. Their behavior would escalate. And so
I'm just thinking of my kids and I'm like, yes.
Yeah, so anyone who's tried to do it, try to introduce something that, you know, is breaking a cycle of behavior that's been really difficult. You know, for whatever reason, it's become a cycle, but you put in a strategy, the kids will increase the ante because they know proportion of parents can be so exhausted at the end of the day. They haven't got the resilience to keep at it. So I was having to coach parents to carry on. Make sure you do it, because at some level they will then get that you mean business. Once you've turned that corner, then, but the journey is, and again, going back to the justice card is, you know, what actions are we taking? With childcare, going down the passive route long term is not necessarily a good idea, because the more patterns you create, the harder it is to break them and then put something new in. So try not even start it before it's began, sort of thing.
Right. Try this positive. Yeah, I know. So, I mean, sometimes you just need to tell
a challenge.
F you kids. But yeah, you know, but yeah, so I'm really hoping that, you know, this series is allowing us the depth of insight, you know, that it's allowing everybody to kind of to grasp that it's not out of reach, that all walks of life have been through these experiences and stages of their journey. And not, if it were easy, everybody would do it. Right. But the amount of time you spend being angry, hurt, victimized, if you were to refocus that into healing and growing, you won't even recognize yourself in a year. Honestly, you won't really, you'll start to lose touch with who you used to be in 6 months. And it just catapults from there. I sometimes look back at my experience and I'm like, I must have been disassociated my entire life. You know, like I don't have, that's not who I am. Who was that person? Because all I've done is just taken down the layers so I could be me. I could be the naked me, the Danielle that I was born into this world to be. And when I look back at it, I'm like, whoa, who is that person? Who was that one? You know, like who believed this thing that these people said to me and allow that to shape my experience in this world. Who is that person? I never deserved that. And, you know, the justice of that is watching me shine. The justice in all of this experience for me is watching me shine, is watching me say, I might have broken, but when I put myself back together, I did it with gold. And here I am now. And there's nothing that's going to break me again, because I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I'm good. I've learned the lessons from it. I've healed and I've grown because of it. So my justice looks like me having a peaceful, happy experience. Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful note to end it on, actually.
Absolutely. You guys don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on Facebook at Mel and Danielle. And if you would be so kind as to share this video, we would be appreciative. We are a growing community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My touchpad stopped working.
Of course it did.